Welcome to Sideline Sports. It is myself, Jake. I am joined by John. This week we have Bryce from one of our network shows. Bryce, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, guys. Glad to be on.
JB is out again this week, dealing with some family stuff. So again, JB, if you're watching, listening, just hope all is well with you. Guys, we got a lot to talk about, and it seems to be the same trend every single week. NFL dominates the conversation because even in the offseason, the NFL manages to have about 1,000,001 things going on. And John, I know this is like the one thing you can't wait to talk about. Dak Prescott signs a new deal this week. Well, yesterday, actually. $160 million for 4 years, including a record of $126 million of which are guaranteed. And in his first 3 years, he's averaging $42 million a year. John, I'm just going to give you the floor because I know you have a lot to say.
So, I mean, first of all, I'm happy for Dak that he got paid. Any player that gets paid, anybody in their profession, when they get paid, I'm happy for you. I'm all for that. I'm not opposed to that. But I think he should have went a little more team-friendly because, you know, whether you make $42 million or $35 million a year, does it really matter? I mean, you're set for life. It doesn't. I get you want to be paid amongst your peers the highest and stuff like that, but does it really matter if you make $35 million or $42 million a year? Really, you're set for life, and your kids are. I think he should have went more team friendly, just because there's a lot of holes on that team. And if he, like I said, if he went 35 million, 33 million or something like that, yeah, it's not quite what everybody else is making at the quarterback position, like the top tier, but you give your team more wiggle room to be able to, get better in other places. And clearly, offensively, they're pretty good, but defensively, they're a disaster. And to me, they're not going to win anything unless the team overall improves. There's a lot of holes clearly on that defense. And now that Dak's getting paid $42 million a year, it's really, we all know, we talked about it before, like it's really hard to succeed when you have a quarterback that's getting paid that much money. And Dallas isn't exactly like the Chiefs. They're not the Chiefs where Mahomes gets paid a lot, but the Chiefs can compensate because they're so good all the way around. Cowboys are not that team. Yeah, Zeke is really good. The receivers are really good. But the line is deteriorating. The tight end spot's bad. Defense is really bad. The head coach, I don't believe in. I don't think many of us believe in the head coach. So there's not a whole lot like that you really can say, yeah, this is a bright spot. The receivers are about one of the only bright spots that you got, because you got Zeke, but Zeke is making a lot of money, and he didn't quite produce like Zeke, we expected. So I think Dak should have went a little more team friendly, just because, like I said, there's so many holes on this team that extra money can really help them get another cornerback or defensive end or linebacker or something can make the team ultimately win. Bryce, what do you think?
I see what Dak's doing here. I mean, people may not know that in 4 years the TV deal's up for the NFL, so he got a 4-year deal just so he can even get even a bigger contract when that time comes. And we talk about the player and how much they want to get paid and how they want to be up top of their peers, but this is also even important for the agent, because he's probably representing other people than Dak, and if he gets Dak a lesser deal than another quarterback, now the question is, we can lowball certain players that have this agent because he gave Dak below whatever the top market quarterback value is in the NFL. But when it comes to Dak, I mean, I'm happy for the guy. I'm glad he got his money. I agree with, your assessment of the team, but we also have to give some blame to Jerry Jones for that. He wrote some big contracts for good players, and now it's not looking real good right now. So, but luckily if you're the Cowboys, it's not a really bad place. You're still in the NFC East, which is still kind of up in the air. We don't really know who's going to come out and be the best team this year. You do have a really good offense, especially receiver. Like I said, offensive line is deteriorating a bit, but if healthy, still probably a pretty good offensive line can still get the job done. We'll see what they do with Zeke. Obviously, Zeke has not been the same since he got that contract. But defensively, I think what you have to fix. And if they can do that with the offense, if they can be what we saw before Dak went down last year offensively, I think they'll have a chance at least to get to the playoffs, because again, NFC East, and then maybe make some noise in the playoffs when they actually get there. But I think this is the trend of quarterback play. You literally nowadays are giving a quarter of your salary to your quarterback, because that's just what we pay quarterbacks now. And that's why, for me, I don't look at this as crazy, because this is what you give a guy who you think is your franchise quarterback. You give him that money. I mean, we talk about Dak. I mean, think about other guys like Lamar Jackson, other guys like that who are going to bigger deals or around the same. They may feel like my client's just as good as him. And especially when the TV deal is up in a couple of years, now we're going to start seeing everybody get $200, maybe $1 million.
All right. Now is where I have a lot to say. So a lot of what you said and what you pointed out, I agree with on both of your points. I think congrats to Dak. I mean, good for you. You just set yourself up for life. And I'm not going to make an attack on Dak. I mean, good for him. But there are some positives and there's honestly a lot of negatives that we haven't even mentioned yet. So, John, I love that you kind of pointed out, yeah, this hurts the team. You're right. I think I look at a guy like Tom Brady, right? Look at the contracts he's taken over his career, though. And I'm not trying to compare the two quarterbacks in terms of style of play or play at all, because they're very different, of course. However, Tom Brady has done one of the smartest things that any quarterback has ever done in the league, which is continue to take a decreased pay cut. Now, he doesn't take a small paycheck. He still gets paid handsomely, and he deserves it. However, he does get paid a lot lower than some of the other top-tier quarterbacks, and the reason he seems to do that is because he knows team first. So the one thing that we pointed out that's a real big negative is that defense. There's no shot they're winning with that defense right now, and that's the first problem. I'm happy for Dak. I'm not going to complain that he got his money. Good for him. However, when you do that, it's going to hurt the team, because what they really need to fix is the defense. The defense was one of the worst in the entire league last season. It was atrocious. And they'll get out of the NFC East no problem, and that's not a question. I know they'll win that. The only team that stands to truly probably beat them is maybe the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. I understand Washington has a nice defense, but at the quarterback position, I'm not sold, so I can count them out. Jalen Hurts, we don't know what he's going to be yet. I don't think the Eagles are going to beat them, but I'm just saying if there's a team, because I think Dak and the Cowboys can go put up 30, 40 points a game and basically do what the Chiefs did, which was just outscore your opponents and not worry about your defense all the time. The problem is that's not going to work when you hit the playoffs, unless you're Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They're about the only team I've ever seen that can just score at will, apparently, and not have those problems. That's going to be what happens to the Cowboys when they get to the playoffs. They'll make it, and that'll be great, but that's going to be a problem. The other things are this. So what I saw on Twitter yesterday, I believe, was highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL stack up like this. Patrick Mahomes at number one at 45 a year. Dak Prescott approximately, because we said he starts at 42. So per year, it's approximately $40 million a year. Deshaun Watson 3 at 39. Russell Wilson at 35. Now here's what I'm noticing. Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston, right? We all know that situation. He's making $1 million less. All right, so it's a similar deal. But what I'm noticing is going to be this, and what I'm afraid for Dak is this. Deshaun Watson doesn't have the offensive weapons, Deshaun Watson doesn't have the offensive weapons that Dak has. But Dak and Deshaun are going to have one similarity. Their defenses are not good at all, and that's going to hurt them in terms of winning games. I truly don't think this was a smart deal for Dak, only because of that. I think the money's great for him, but ultimately your team gets hurt because they can't add the defense. And I don't think he's going to pull what Deshaun Watson is pulling. He's not going to try and get out of Dallas. He'll play through the contract probably, because the offensive weapons, which is on his end, are going to be great, and he's going to have a lot to work with. It's just he's going to get frustrated because his team is not going to win. And that leads me into the last problem about this deal. What the Cowboys had to do, which I'm not sure if you guys knew, and I thought it was kind of odd, but I saw it, as a procedural move, the Cowboys had to place a $37.7 million franchise tag on Dak this year, or today, actually. Now, this is a placeholder until he signs his deal, and it's not going to affect his cap hit. But what the problem with this is this. They can't put a franchise tag back on Dak. So when this 4-year contract ends, he's either signing a new deal, where he's an unrestricted free agent to go do whatever he wants and sign wherever he wants. Cowboys, I don't know why they did that. I don't know the logistics behind it, but I think that hurts them. I think if you're going to pay him that much money, see what he does this year, because what nobody has seemed to have talked about, Dak was hurt. Okay, Dak got hurt, and we don't know what he's going to come back look like from coming back from injury. I can give you a guy, not the same position, but Todd Gurley is a great example. He comes back from injury, and he's not been the same guy since he was previously hurt. I understand it's different positions, and that's fine. But the point is, a guy comes back from injury, we don't always know what he's going to look like. If I'm the Cowboys, if I'm Jerry Jones, really, I'm not sure this was the smartest deal for all those reasons, but it's not team friendly, because if Dak sucks, well, guess what? You're stuck paying him $40 million a year, and you got basically what Carson Wentz was. You're going to have a similar situation at that point. And guess what? That didn't work out very well, now did it? I don't think that helps the Cowboys. And so that's another problem. And there's one last thing I just thought about. Dak doesn't win in the playoffs. You're paying him all this money, but he's not winning in the playoffs. Right. Well,
he's 1-2 in the playoffs.
Right. And it's not entirely his fault, but you're going to pay that much money. You'd hope you're going to start winning, right? But they're not going to, because of the defense. We talked about that. That's kind of why I go back to what I said about Deshaun Watson. It reminds me of that, right? You have a guy that can score. You have a guy that can make plays. You have a guy that can be at the top of his game, but the team itself won't win. And so that's the last concern. And I know I threw a lot at you guys, but there is so much that has to be unpacked with this deal. And I'm happy for Dak, and that's the most important thing I will say about this. I'm not trying to take anything away from what he did or any of his accomplishments, because I think he's a talented quarterback, but I think he's being overpaid. I think, considering we don't know what he's going to be when he comes back. We don't know if he's going to be able to win, which he's likely not because of an atrocious defense. Altogether, I'm not loving this deal if I'm the Cowboys. If I'm Dak, I'm throwing a party and I'm freaking out. I don't care if COVID's a thing or not. I'm having a ball. But if I'm the Cowboys, I'm kind of a little upset, because really, when you look at the situation, here's what happened. 2019, 2020. I want $40 million a year. He didn't get it. He was offered about 32. Plays part of 2020, gets hurt, and then gets paid $40 million? What's up with that? I don't get it. That's all I got. And I know there's a lot there, so feel free to pick apart what I said.
Oh, I think the thing is that, they could be the thing of what you said about him being hurt. It's just, we saw the Cowboys after he got hurt, and if the NFC East wasn't so bad, they would probably be a top 5, maybe top 16 this year at the draft from a record perspective, just because, defense was the issue. Offense clearly was it. They were better late, but they weren't the same without Dak.
Agreed.
And so maybe Jerry looked at that and said, I can't take that chance again if, Dak potentially leaving, and now I have no quarterback to be, because Jerry's going to pay, he'll write checks to win. He's shown I'll do anything he believes in his mind is going to take to win, and that's why he gave Dak this contract. And in going back to another point, you said this is not a good deal for the Cowboys in general. And like I said earlier in my point, Jerry's kind of written a bunch of bad contracts. This is just how he does business.
Yeah, you're
Even
right.
if we don't agree with it completely, that's just how he does business. Because I guess the other arcade question you would ask, even if you franchise Dak for this year, I believe if they did franchise him a third time, it would be $50 million would be the cap.
I don't think they can.
You can only franchise twice.
Yeah.
You can't franchise a third time. Kirk Cousins style. Yeah. That's why Kirk Cousins left Washington.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is that now you're getting into this territory of, okay, Dak could leave if we don't pay him. And so it's that question that a lot of teams get into with quarterbacks. You're going to probably see that maybe with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland and other situations as they decide if they're going to pay the guy or not. If we play out this franchise tag and he plays the year on it, let's say the Cowboys, they have, this goes 10-6, get eliminated in the wild card. If you lose them, are you going to even be a playoff team next year? Are you even going to be close to it? And if you pay him, at least you could say, well, we're going to be relevant, because the Cowboys, the brand in general is going to be relevant.
Mhm.
But are we going to be a team that actually can do, like, it's almost like you got to have a plan to replace him. It's like what you hear this offseason with the 49ers. If they move off Jimmy G, they need to they want a plan behind that. They don't want to just move him. It's always been that. The Eagles.
Well, you can't trade a quarterback and not have a plan
Right.
when you trade the quarterback. That's why the Eagles traded Carson Wentz, because they had a plan already. They drafted Jalen Hurts because they knew at some point Wentz was going to get hurt. They were going to get rid of him. They knew something was going to happen with Wentz eventually. So they drafted Hurts just in case something went wrong, and something went wrong, and they ended up having a backup plan. Whether it works out or not, we'll see.
I think what Bryce is trying to say is if he plays out this contract, plays out the franchise tag, and then leaves, they're left with no option.
And I think it's just that situation where you just like we kind of have to pay him. I mean, listen, you heard that Russell Wilson was interested in going to the Cowboys, but in that situation, you have to give up probably picks and players. And so, you might be getting an upgrade, but you're losing a lot of maybe some key pieces.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
So it's a tough decision.
Risk. It's a calculated risk. That's all it is. And I understand it.
I just don't think the Cowboys are in a position to take that risk because their team isn't a quarterback away from the Super Bowl. They're not a quarterback away. They're a lot of pieces away, and paying a quarterback $42 million. Yeah, I mean, he's really good.
Quarterback. I mean,
he's really good, but I think it ends up hurting you more than it helps you because your team isn't built to be a quarterback away right now. You're not in that position. If Dak was on the Niners and the Niners paid him that much, I'd say, yeah, that's great because the Niners are a quarterback away from being the best team in the NFC. That's just my opinion. But I think their roster is that good to where if they had a real quarterback, Jimmy G's not a real quarterback, Brian Snow, member of Sideline Sports, just so you know, Brian, Jimmy G's not a real quarterback. Just throw that out there. If they had a real one, they would be, easily, injuries aside, I think they would easily dominate the NFC. It's just my opinion. But, so like that's the Cowboys aren't in that position. They have no defense. Their line's falling apart. The receivers are really good. You don't need Zeke, and you're paying him a ton of money when Tony Pollard's probably serviceable. If you could get rid of Zeke and get rid of that contract. That's just how I feel. I don't like the makeup of the roster or the coaching staff.
And at least in Jimmy G's sake, he can say he made a Super Bowl appearance. Dak has never done that.
That's part of the problem with the Cowboys is, was getting Dak down to a contract really important? Yes, because even though they're not a quarterback away, you do need your franchise quarterback. That's just the nature of the game.
Could you have traded him and gotten a king's ransom, and then rebuilt, went to rebuild mode because you're not, you're far away from a Super Bowl. If that's what Jerry wants, I don't know if that's what he wants.
Definitely not what Jerry wants.
That's what I'm going to say. Jerry Jones is not very good at rebuilding. The man expects winning all the time. If you go 8-8, at least it's acceptable enough to him.
But they went 5-11 or 6-10 this year?
Hold on. What I was going to say is 8-8 is his golden standard, it seems, and that's why Jason Garrett kept his job for so long. No, but last season I think Jerry Jones says, "Okay, I give a pass," because our guy, our quarterback, got hurt, and while he was playing, we were playing great. But when he got hurt, what am I supposed to do? And I think that's part of why he did sign Dak, is because he realizes when he's on the field, that man gets this team to play at a much higher level. Defense, he doesn't change, but the offense, he gets it going, and they score a lot of points. And I think he sees that potential.
When they started out, well, they should have been 0-2 to start out. I mean, they started out 0-1 against the Rams. They should have been 0-2. Their team was bad against the Falcons. And then the Falcons, obviously, melted down. So it's not like the Cowboys were world beaters when Dak got hurt. I mean, this team Jerry may have thought the team was really good, but the rest of us are like, that roster's not a good roster. Like, they're not going anywhere. They're not – they're in the NFC. It's like Bryce said. That's it. If they're in the division with the Packers or the Saints or the Niners or teams like that, guess what? you're going to be be in the basement the entire time with that type of roster. You're never going to get out of that basement. So they're just lucky they're in the NFC East.
I think what Jerry Jones was saying, which was kind of my point. Okay, against the Rams, they scored 17, so they didn't score a lot there. But the next 4 games before they, completely lost Dak, the team put up 40, 31, 38, and 37 points.
All right, the first one, the 40, was the meltdown by the Falcons. So
I understand,
let's not credit Dak and the team. That was more the
even
Falcons.
Even if you take that away, fine. Against the Seahawks, and I understand they're not good defenses, but I think the point I'm making is Jerry Jones has seen these huge numbers, and I can go through, each game against the Falcons. You got Dak Prescott throwing for over 400, almost 450 yards. Against the Seahawks, Dak throws for almost 500 yards. Okay, against the Browns, even though they lost, he throws over 500 yards. And against the Giants, he throws for 166 because he goes out partially throughout the game. He leaves part of the game. So the point of what I'm getting at is I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a team that's going anywhere. And they weren't kicking butt. But Dak was on an absolute tear. And I think that's part of what Jerry Jones saw, which was, this is my franchise quarterback, and this guy was absolutely killing it when he was in. While he was, even though we weren't winning every game, he was really playing at an extremely high level. And because we all know franchise quarterbacks don't always come right around, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's a gamble that he takes, and I'm not sure he wants to do that. The guy would rather go 8-8 than be a bottom feeder for a couple of years and then be a winner and contending for Super Bowls. And that's Jerry Jones' problem, but that's why he did it. He doesn't want to make his fans. He doesn't want to suffer through the rebuild. He's not known for doing that. If you look at Jerry Jones, he's happy with 8-8. He's perfectly happy with it.
That's a loser mentality by Jerry Jones.
He would rather go 8-8 than just know we're going 2-14. He'd rather try every year, even if he knows he's not the best team, than just say, yeah, this is a year we're just going to be bad. Because he just feels like that's just not a good look on him.
Every team eventually gets to that point, though, to where they have to look themselves in the mirror and say, hey, our roster's not good. Let's tear it down. Let's restart. Let's get rid of that's what you do. You get rid of your best player and helps, start the rebuild process. You could have Carolina was extremely interested in Dak. That was a big team that was interested in him. You could have, went to Carolina. You could have gotten maybe a couple firsts out of them for Dak, which I'm sure, what Stafford got from for the Rams, I'm sure you could have got plenty more for Dak. That's just me, but we all know, like you said, Jake, Jerry doesn't think rationally.
No, I mean, and I can go back, and I'm not going to bore everybody by going through all the stats because there's a lot. But in Jerry Jones' time being the manager, or rather the owner, since taking over in 89, from 91 up until 96, they had winning records.
Of course, they had Emmett, Aikman, and
no, I understand.
Right.
So he got used to that. Then 98 they go 10-6. 99 they go 8-8. Then they have a couple bad years. 2003 they do well again. And then after that, if you go through their record, it's pretty simple. 05, 06, 9-7. 07, winning record. 08, winning record. Years, 09, 11-5. After that, they have 4 straight years where they either go the first year in 10 is 6-10, 3 straight years of 8-8. And you know how the last few years have gone. That's what Jerry Jones expects.
And the only reason I think that they had some winning seasons, 09, 10, like right around that area, was because of Romo. And it's not like Jerry Jones was like, yeah, Tony Romo, first round pick, great pick. Like, no, he got lucky, stumbled into it.
No, you're absolutely right.
Who ended up being a really good quarterback. But he stumbled into that. So it's not like Jerry Jones found that diamond in the rough. He just happened to stumble upon that. And Romo ended up being, he came into service because of injury, and he ended up being pretty good. So that's not Jerry Jones really like building.
You know what happened again? He stumbled into Dak. It's the same thing.
Into Dak. Yep.
And all he's doing is he's just paying the guy that he knows is winning games. That's just how Jerry Jones does things.
it's a Band-Aid because he's just putting
Yeah.
a big wad of cash on the best
right.
position you can and not filling the other holes. And that's not how you build a winning team.
You're right, but that's how Jerry Jones plays football. He's not. There's a reason I don't think he's a really good manager or owner or anything really, because he doesn't fix the bigger issues. He just goes for a Band-Aid.
And never wants to be challenged either. That's why he doesn't hire people like a GM or a strong-minded hitter.
For anybody who doesn't realize, this is JB. He's right. The one time he's not here, no, John makes sense. But no, but that's the way it is. That's just how the Cowboys are, and I know we talk about dysfunctional organizations, but they're one of them. I mean, there's no question. I understand they're not the most dysfunctional organization in Texas because biggest loser easily that goes to the Texans, no question. Because at least the Cowboys are going 8-8 every now and again. But
I better not hear Dak pull this Deshaun Watson stuff in 2 years. I better not hear that. I don't want to hear it in the 4 years or whatever that he's going to be at the Cowboys. I better not once hear him complain about winning, about lack of winning.
He knew what he was doing.
I better not once hear that because he knows that the roster's not that good, and he took a large. Now he deserves it, but he took a large amount of money. Could have taken a little bit less so the team gets better, and he knows the team isn't that great. At least he should defensively. And their offense does have some issues themselves. I don't want to hear him complain when, in 2 years when, they've had 4-12 back to back. And he's like, dang, like we're not winning anything. I want out. I don't want to hear that at all from Dak.
You're right.
Do not want to hear that.
Wouldn't surprise me. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
Nope. All right. Moving on from Dak, there is still a ton of NFL news. This morning, very early, actually, Trent Brown was traded to the Patriots because, of course, the Patriots and Bill Belichick are trying to make this franchise better because he's the evil genius that he is. Raiders get a 2022 fifth-round pick. Pats also got themselves a 2022 seventh-round pick in this trade. Only negative in this trade for the Patriots is Brown will become a free agent after this season. So if you're Bill Belichick, you know what you're doing. Get a good guy, get a strong offensive lineman, get him to re-sign. That's clear what he's doing. And he knows he's going to get a big payday, but that's clearly what he's doing. So don't need to talk about that too much. Nothing exciting there. But there's a lot of franchise tags today, so I'll just kind of run through this list real quick. There's some franchise tags, indoor players being released. We can talk about a couple when we're done, but I'll go through the list real quickly. Buccaneers franchise tag Chris Godwin today. Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker Bud Dupree, who was franchise tagged last year, is informed he will not be, so he's going to be a free agent. Hunter Henry was not. He was a free agent. The big one that was a lot of people were kind of upset about it. Allen Robinson himself seemed upset because he was franchise tagged by the Bears today. Titans did not tag Johnny Smith, so their tight end will be going to free agency. Packers did not place a franchise tag on Aaron Jones, so he will also be heading to the free agency as we expected. That was we kind of expected that. There were a couple others, but I don't need to go through every single person. What else I got? Bucks re-signed Levante David today, 2 years for $25 million, $20 million guaranteed. What else we got? Titans released Malcolm Butler, and that's it. So I know there's a lot there. You feel free to point something out you want to talk about, but I just wanted to put that out there for everybody. That's the big news in terms of who got signed, who didn't, who's a free agent, who's not. Now it's all official. Anybody that might have been franchise tagged, might not have been. If they weren't franchise tagged today, they're an unrestricted free agent.
Right? I mean, I'm not really surprised by a lot of the names. There's a name you didn't mention that kind of surprised me. Kenny Golladay not getting tagged by Detroit.
You're right.
Since he's been their number one receiver, even though he had injuries last year, he's going to hit the market. And also with Aaron Jones, I know that he didn't get tagged, but I heard Green Bay is still trying to re-sign him before then.
That's what I've heard as well. Yeah,
they're still trying to work on some negotiations, or else, John might be a happy man. And pretty soon.
I'm waiting on Aaron Jones to come down to South Florida.
Yeah,
it's nice weather. It's better than the weather up there.
Yeah.
Going down, no taxes.
I hope not.
But overall, I'm not, like I said, too surprised by too many of the moves. It's interesting because, obviously the cap is down this year.
Yep.
So I'm sure certain teams aren't able to maybe keep certain guys they want just because of money issues. So there's a lot of quality players, I feel like, on the market this year.
Yeah.
And I think this free agency is going to be really interesting when it hits, because there's going to be a lot of quality players out there that you can bring onto your team.
Yeah. John, I know you got something to say.
I think we've seen it a million times with the coaches, with the linemen, the linebackers, and we're going to see it again. This is just my opinion, but I think Malcolm Butler's going to find his way back to New England. It's just me, but New England does it with every single player that leaves. They suck somewhere else. The coaches, I mean, look at Matt Patricia in Detroit. He sucked, and where did he come slithering back to? The only place that wanted him. You guessed it, New England. Jamie Collins. It happened with Jamie Collins a few years ago. The Patriots do this with every player. The player leaves or the coach leaves. They don't perform quite as well, and then they come slithering back. And Malcolm Butler, I think, is going to end up slithering back to New England because they could use the help across from Stephon Gilmore, who's coming off an injury. So I think he'll end up – that was one that stuck out to me, and I really see New England scooping him up on a cheap deal. And that's going to be an under-the-radar move.
Yeah.
I think Kenny Golladay – I think Baltimore's going to get one of these big receivers, whether it's a sign and trade with the Bears and Baltimore for Allen Robinson, something like that, or Kenny Golladay. I think the Ravens are going to end up getting – they should. Now, Ravens never sign receivers. They're stupid. I don't know why they don't. Lamar Jackson could really use a big body guy on the outside. So I think that they could use a Kenny Golladay or an Allen Robinson. They would fit perfectly. The only problem is I was looking at Twitter tonight, and somebody posted a stat that said Kenny Galladay's catch percentage, not this season, but overall since 2017, is 105 out of 143, I think, qualified receivers that have had at least 43 games played, I believe it is. So 105 out of 143 receivers that they put on this list, he has that low of a catch percentage. Only 56% of the balls that are thrown to him are caught by Kenny Golladay. So remember that teams that are going after Golladay, it's a good receiver, but he misses a lot of games. He doesn't catch the balls that he's supposed to. When he does, he makes a lot of big splash plays. He scores touchdowns. It's fast, but he doesn't catch a lot of the balls that are thrown to him. 56% is a terrible, terrible number. That's like bottom of the barrel. That's like, some of your worst receivers. That's like a Braxton Berrios type of like quality receiver right there. And I think Galladay's good, but you can't have that low catch percentage.
Well, hey John, I saw something earlier today that said your team down in South Beach is looking to pick him up.
I see. We have Devontae Parker, same exact guy, always hurt. He's pretty solid when he's healthy, but he just can't stay healthy. And when healthy, he disappears in games. So a big game now disappears. So we have a Kenny Golladay ourselves. Like we already have that in Devontae Parker, a guy that you're not quite sure about. So
I got two places I could see Kenny Golladay going. One of them might be a little bit more out there. So I'll start with the one that seems a little bit more logical, probably. But what do you think about the Arizona Cardinals getting a sidekick, if you will, for DeAndre Hopkins and giving Kyler Murray just another awesome weapon? I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is going to, get the double coverage. We know that. That's not a question. He's going to pull the receiver every time. That would give Kenny Golladay a field day out there with a good young quarterback. I mean, I know it may not.
Is this assuming Larry Fitzgerald retires, or does it matter?
He did retire.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he did retire. He this past season was his last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I mean, I don't know their cap number, but it makes sense.
Okay. I was just asking because I heard that he hadn't made an official decision, that they're still waiting for him, but that's why I was just checking.
Yeah, I don't know if he did retire. I don't think so.
I don't think he officially did it. I think
he kind of said he probably would, but
yeah. I think once you've been in the league 17 years, and I mean, he wasn't even getting the ball in that offense, in that high octane offense. He was just getting the ball once or twice a game, so that way his catch streak would continue. That's basically what he was used for.
Even if he doesn't retire, I still think it makes sense because he's not the number 2 receiver. I mean, probably by name or just based on like the roster itself, he would be. But
Christian Kirk's their number 2, but he's not even that good.
Right. Yeah. He really is the number 2. Right. So you get what I mean. So I think that'd be an awesome compliment. But the other team, it might seem a little bit more odd, but it makes a lot of sense. They have a huge amount of cap space. It's a team that can win right now. Indianapolis Colts. I could see Carson Wentz saying, look, I don't know if T.Y. Hilton's coming back because he's a free agent as well. We need a receiver. I need a number 1 guy. Kenny Golladay can be that guy. Even though he's not I know we talked about his issues, but he's still a number 1 receiver. There's no question that he is. I think we could all collectively agree that he would be. I could see them making a run at him. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the Colts have some of the most cap room to work with this upcoming season. They're number 4. They're only behind the Jags, Patriots, and the Jets. I mean, they're right up there. They're a team that's in win now mode. Carson Wentz, I understand we don't know exactly who he's going to be, but I think we kind of all can agree for the most part, if he doesn't suck completely and he can just be a decent game manager, this team at the very least will make the playoffs just because their defense is so strong.
What about this? Because I just thought of this. Because I heard that Drew Brees potentially might not be the guy for New Orleans this year, but he still wants to play football. So if Drew Brees goes to Washington, needs a quarterback. They're a really good team. They need a quarterback, and then they get Golladay to go with Terry McLaurin. And they have a really good defense, and the offense could be really good if you have a solid quarterback. Breeze at this state would probably be solid for them. Doesn't have to do too much. They have a really good run game. And if you sign Golladay and you have Terry McLaurin and Logan Thomas and Antonio Gibson, that I think if you get Breeze and Golladay, that Washington team could be scary.
Well, the issue with that is the Saints have probably had a top 3 roster the last 2 years, and they've lost in the playoffs. So in Washington, we don't probably collectively feel like
they're
it's
in the
as
NFC
good as the
East. They're in the NFC East, whereas the Saints got to battle the Bucks.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm looking, I guess, in terms of playoff success, because they're going to have to go through the Bucks regardless in the playoffs. But I could understand regular season success. Yeah, Washington, you could maybe say, okay, they could be the favorite with Drew. But playoff success, that's where I feel like you're still going to end up doing the same thing because Drew is older and he just doesn't seem to play as well as he did early in the season late. And, and if he plays one more year, if you're Washington, I guess you're just having one more year to just try to find another guy, potentially draft a guy. It could be a
stopgap. You could draft a guy, this year while having Breeze mentor him. And then have a guy like Golladay to really help out. And like I said, he wouldn't have to do too much in my scenario because it's a run first team, do a little bit of play action. McLaurin does a lot. Golladay would do a lot. Logan Thomas and Gibson, guys like that. So I think that may be just an idea for Washington. Remember, Washington, if you're watching, good idea.
Watching. I don't know. I'm not sold on the move because he's expensive, first of all. I mean, that's pretty clear he's not going to come cheap. And
they paid Tyler Heineke a little bit, like they paid him decentish money.
Yeah, so I was going to say.
That's a nice backup to have.
But I don't think that's how they viewed it. I mean, Washington has the cap space, understandably. But at the same time, to sign both is going to be really expensive, first of all. Second of all, Bryce makes a great point. They did seemingly spend – I mean, it wasn't a lot considering what he is, but they definitely spent some money on Heineke.
I think need a decent backup. You have to have a decent backup in this league.
I feel like with the signing, with the money, with the intentions behind it, or at least what they seem to be, it gave off the message that this is going to be a guy that we want to give him a chance at least. And he didn't get a lot of money. He got like $5 million, a little bit less.
That's penny cash in the NFL.
Right, but for a guy that they think might be the quarterback for the team coming forward, because they don't have Alex Smith, there's no real other quarterback.
You can think that, but then as soon as you get an opportunity to go out and get a guy like Breeze or like a Winston or somebody like that, then it changes things. That's what I'm saying.
Well, here's also the issue with that. If they did get Drew and they had a good year, they wouldn't have a low draft pick. I think if you're Washington, you don't have a quarterback, you may want to be in position to get one of the top quarterbacks.
If you go and get a guy like that this year, then you draft a guy as well this year so Drew Brees can mentor that guy. Because it's about the mentoring too and not just the playing.
I don't know.
Remember, Brett Favre mentored, kind of mentored.
Kind of.
In a way.
There was a rocky relationship there. I don't know about that.
Rodgers definitely learned a lot from Brett Favre.
There's been learning from him and being mentored by him. Let's make a clear distinction. He did not mentor Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers sat there, dealt with his BS, and learned from his play style. But I don't think Brett Favre just
maybe he picked up.
I'm going to teach you some stuff.
Maybe he picked up Brett Favre's, his shenanigans. Maybe he picked that up because
that's very possible.
Yeah.
But I don't know about that. I don't know if Washington has the money to sign both. It's going to be a big cap hit for both of them.
I feel like if Breeze went somewhere, he's not going to get that much because the market for a guy like that at that age isn't very big.
I think
he'll probably get north of 20, but
yeah, I was going to say a little bit north of 20, and their cap space
kind of like Phil Rivers last year.
Yeah, I mean the truth is the cap space for Washington this year is about 40. So depending on his deal per year, depending on anybody else they're trying to bring in, it does get a little bit pricey. That's all. I doubt it, but you never know. Drew Brees there's rumors he's going to retire. There's rumors he's not. I don't know what's going to happen with him. That's a whole nother question. But
that was just what I was thinking. That's
an interesting idea. I don't think it's going to happen, but anything else you guys want to talk about for NFL? Because if not, I think we should move to basketball.
Well, I'm excited for basketball. There's a lot to talk about.
Bryce, take it away, my man. You're filling in for JB this week. You got basketball. What do we got going on?
Bryce on the NBA carousel, by the way.
Yes, sir. Covering Portland Trailblazers. But really, guys, I mean, we just got to start with the quick obvious news. Blake Griffin signing with the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, if you want to say in terms of name value, gives them a big four. But Blake Griffin still at this point in his career, he may not be able to dunk anymore, but he can still do some things, shoot the ball, good IQ. And basically, the question I have for you guys is just, do you look at this and say, well, yeah, Nets are favorites, no doubt about it now that they've gotten Blake Griffin, or do you still feel like Lakers or Clippers or someone else's should be the favorites overall? Because out of the East, we know Brooklyn's the best team, I think. Outside of 76ers, they may be the only team that can compete with them legitimately in my mind in the East. But
all right,
getting into who's the best or how are we feeling right now after the signing?
Go ahead, Jake. Go ahead.
Look, I felt they were favored, at least in the East previously. I said that, I said that last week that I thought they were favored in the East. All this does is put them a little bit higher on my list. I understand Blake Griffin is not what he used to be, and I'm not going to sit here and try and make that case because I know he's not. He's older. He's not what he's not on that same level of MVP caliber player that he used to be, and I know that. That's okay, but I think you brought it up. What Blake Griffin really brings more than anything is a veteran leadership and a veteran presence, and he still does play decent basketball. He still obviously wouldn't be signing if he couldn't play at all, right? But I think considering what this roster already has, I think it's a great addition because when you think about it, who's going to draw the majority of the attention? The other three on the team, if they're all on the court, right? Even if there's two of them on the court, even if let's just say, Kyrie and James Harden, kind of what we're seeing for now, right? Those two, they're going to get the attention more likely than not. You're going to try and double team one, can't do both, and they're going to be able to move the ball well enough that someone's going to get open between the three of them. And that's not even talking about when KD is on the court with them, when anybody else is on the court, because it's a nice team, but just talking about the four of them, right? When you have, let's say Kyrie and come on, Alex.
Guys, I want to apologize first and foremost. I work all the time, and I'm stuck at work, and I'm like, I am not going to stand up journey with the Jays. My man Jon Shearer, Jake Malik asking Mel Kiper questions. I see you, bro. Nice to meet you, Bryce. I'm Alex. I'm nobody special. Don't mind me.
Nice to meet you, Alex.
Anyway, we were just talking about a little Blake Griffin. So the point of what I was getting at is, look, Kyrie, KD, James Harden, they're all going to draw the attention. And it's not that we're going to see Blake Griffin be an MVP candidate. It's not going to happen. He's not what he was. But you give the guy some open space to make a play. He's a good enough basketball player. He'll make a play. And that's why I think it's a good addition. He adds a veteran presence, like I mentioned. This is a great team as it is. You're not adding a bad player. You're still adding a great player with a really great basketball IQ. He's going to help elevate the team around. He'll make some plays when he's on the court. I think it's a great addition if you're the Nets. No negatives here, if you ask me.
No, it's nothing but positive, and let me tell you why. He's not the first or second option. Hell, he's not the third option.
Exactly.
If you want to be technical and you're looking at Joe Harris, he's not the fourth option. He could play the small center because he's an oversized power forward. I guarantee you he's going to have at least one dunk on Thursday. You know, don't bet the under. I'd bet the over. He's going to have at least one dunk on Thursday. I can see James Harden set him up with an
dunk. Does he still know how to dunk?
If you were stuck in Detroit for 2 years, you'd forget how to dunk too. He wasn't happy. He played a total of 38 games for the life of that contract. All right? Now he's on the championship contending team. I think you're going to see a different Blake Griffin.
I think you're going to see an energized Blake Griffin. I agree. Mm-hmm. Bryce, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I see the same thing with Blake. I think the one thing about Blake, you have to give him credit. He's developed a different part of his game. Early in his career, he was mainly athleticism, dunks, close to the rim. Now he can shoot the mid-range, shoot the three. That's one thing. Even if you get older, you can always shoot. It's not something, unless you lose your legs, it's not something that goes away. And I think
he lost his leg.
Well, you know, in terms of like you know,
he's got
still
Todd Gurley's knees.
Yeah, but like, I think what you said about the double team and how it's going to leave him open, not even just for dunks, just, you know, when James Harden penetrates, since he's the point of this team now, or Kyrie or whoever, you know, it's going to be a guy who can shoot in the corner and hit that three, or hit whatever they need him, he can do, and just makes them that much more dangerous. Because think about it. If they go with DeAndre Jordan, we know DeAndre Jordan is strictly in the paint. You go with
he's strictly
Blake,
a defensive guy, right?
Exactly. If you go with Blake, maybe not the same defender DeAndre Jordan is, but probably a better offensive player. And then it just depends on where you feel about him and Jeff Green. Jeff Green is like a 3-4. Blake's more of a 4. So you feel like you still got maybe some size, and then you got a guy who can still shoot, and that just makes the offense more dangerous in general.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the same? Oh, you're muted, Alex. I see you talking, but you're muted.
I just want to let you know I got to get back to work. Love you guys. Hey, next week I'll be here.
All right. Thanks for joining us, man.
Alex.
I still think Milwaukee's a better team than the Nets, but that's just me.
All right, John.
All right. So we're giving Blake Griffin too much credit. My gosh, what is this guy? Still an all-star? No, is this guy? He hasn't dunked in like 3 or 4 years, and we're giving him like this is the greatest signing ever type of credit. I mean,
we did not say it's the greatest signing ever.
The guy is
the team.
Do we really want to, like, if you're the Nets, do you really want a guy who you said didn't play out the life of his contract because he was in, or I guess Alex said because he was in Detroit, he wasn't happy, so he didn't play as well as he could? Like, you want a guy that's going to half-ass it because he's in a bad situation? Like, you want a guy that's going to give his all no matter where he's at. And just because he's in a bad situation, like, that's like Randy Moss with the Raiders. Like, he didn't try, and then he went to the Patriots and he started trying. Like, I want a guy who wants to be there, a guy who's going to give it his all no matter what situation he is. I don't trust Blake Griffin. Like I said, he has Todd Gurley's knees. He can't dunk. He can't jump. There's nothing left of him. Remind me to sit down with Alex and get deep details on that. And Blake is a great pickup with the loss of Allen. They're still not the Heat. They're still not the Miami Heat. So let's just get that out of the way.
John,
they're not the Miami Heat. They're not Eric Spoelstra. Not Jimmy Butler. Not Bam Adebayo. Not Tyler Herro.
John,
none
they're
of
better
those
than the
guys.
Heat. You're right. They're better than the Heat.
If the Miami Heat did not have injuries and COVID all year, They'd have a
They
better
still
record
wouldn't be
than
better.
these Nets. They'd have a better
they
record
wouldn't.
than these Nets. They're going
No,
to
they
go to the
wouldn't.
Eastern Conference Finals, and they're going to beat the Nets in
No, they're
5 games. 5 games.
No.
On it right now. Just like the Celtics last year. Just like sweep it. Well, I guess beating the Bucks in 5.
No.
Just like last year when everybody thought they were going to lose to the Bucks and the Celtics.
John, now
It's
you're
still the
just being
Heat
a homer.
Eastern Conference. And the NBA is still the Lakers league right now. So you really got to give the Lakers above the Nets because the Lakers are still champs. So until they're dethroned, you really can't put the Nets above them. That's just how I feel. Joe said he checked in for this. Yeah, he did. Heat are better than the Nets, JB.
No, they're
Wish you're here
not.
to debate me on that. But injuries and COVID, that's just made us look like a 500
All right,
team.
but John,
When we're healthy and the playoffs come around, the real Heat are going to show.
John, I'll make it simple. Who is your star on the Heat? And I'm not asking for your good players. Who is
Jimmy
your star?
You've got a couple. You got Jimmy Butler. You got Bam Adebayo.
No,
that's plenty.
Hold on. Bam is not a star. He's a really great player, and there's a distinction. There's a distinction.
I beg to differ.
I'm not taking away from him. Stars are LeBron, KD,
Jimmy Butler.
Steph, Jimmy Butler. I agree. Those are the stars of the league. And there's plenty of guys I'm not mentioning, of course. Okay. There's a difference, though. If you're an all-star, that doesn't mean you're a star. That means you're a great player.
Well, Bam wasn't an all-star, but he
exactly my point.
He got snubbed.
Right, but that's my point exactly. You don't have to be an all-star to be a great player, but what I am saying is not every all-star is like a star in the league. And Bam wasn't even an all-star. Even though he was snubbed.
He was definitely snubbed.
But he would have been what we would call a low-tier all-star. And what I mean by that, compared to his peers, he's on the bottom of the list of all the all-stars selected to any team. That's not
just so you know. Ben Simmons was an all-star, didn't play because of the COVID, but he was an all-star, and Bam's better than Ben Simmons.
Hold on. But I'm saying we ranked all the all-stars. Bam would be on the bottom of that list. And for me,
have you watched Bam play this year?
With all the all-stars, he can be near the bottom.
This Heat slander. I can't believe this Heat slander. Just like last year. Remember the Heat slander last year you and JB gave me? And you're wrong about Spoelstra. He's going to be a Hall of Fame coach. You're wrong about against the Bucks. You're wrong about the Celtics.
I'm not saying he'd be the worst all-star on the team. I'm saying LeBron would be all the way up here with Steph, right? That's where those guys are. And then this is like the middle tier.
He down there with Vucevic.
He'd be kind of down here. It's not a knock against him. It's just compared to the other stars that would have been up there. Okay, you're going to put Bam with Luka? No, of course you're not. They're totally different.
Put him above.
All right, now you're just talking.
Put him above. He plays defense. He plays defense and he plays hard defense.
John, now you're
Luka
really
doesn't even play defense. Go play defense, Luka, and tell me about it first.
John, the point is Bam would not.
He can't even spell defense.
The point of what I'm making is Bam was not an all-star. He's not a superstar.
He got
I guarantee I will sit here and you cannot debate me. You will agree. Is Kyrie a superstar? Absolutely. He's one of the best in the league. We all know that. Even if you don't like him. Is KD a superstar in this league? No matter how much
him and his Achilles tendon, sure.
He's still an absolute elite force. And you know it. And he proves it. Okay? Is James Harden a star of this league? Absolutely. So guess what?
Look at that. Look what the Godfather said. Bam may be better than Luka. Yeah.
Is not better than Harden or Harden. Excuse you. He said, hold on. That's not Luka Doncic. That's not nice try, John.
That's his German last name. That's his German last name, Brassy.
Sure. Sure, John. If that makes you feel better. The point is that one team has a great setup team, an incredible set of all-stars.
I think we're just overrating the Nets a little bit. We haven't seen them in the playoffs.
Okay. That's fine.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, okay. So if we look at a team who's built like Miami, would we agree? I don't know what John thinks, but would we agree, Jake, that a team that's built like Miami this year, that rises of last year's team, you could maybe say is the Utah Jazz? Because they have the one star in Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Bam, Rudy. That obviously they're two different players. Rudy's more of
a defensive player. A sidekick though.
Yeah. And
they're strong sidekick.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't have like superstars, but they have a lot of really good players, really good coach.
I can see that.
You know what I'm saying? They're kind of like Miami. Remember, Miami last year when they started the season, what they were like in the top, they were top 4 mainly all year, right? In the East, like last year. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of remind me of the same teams. And so I get what John is saying, because it's just like with the way they're constructed. I mean, you saw what they did to the Eastern Conference last year. And you would think, okay, if they're healthy, they could maybe do around the same thing. But at the same time, I do think that Jimmy Butler's been a little injury prone this year. He hasn't been healthy. They did have that short turnaround. I think this may be a year where I think Miami's going to make the playoffs. I think they're getting themselves back in where they were. Agreed. But I don't know if they're going to make it anywhere as far as they did last year, depending on matchups. Because if they're the 8th spot, let's say they get into the 8th, they're probably going to have to play Philadelphia or Brooklyn. In a lot of hypothetical situations, maybe outside of John, you're probably going to take Brooklyn or the 76ers to win that series. Maybe 76ers are like obviously a team we don't know about till they get to the playoffs, so maybe there's a better chance there. But Brooklyn, you're probably like 5 games maybe. Because here's the thing. Brooklyn can score 130 points a game because they got 2 guys who could drop 30, another guy who could drop 20, and then everybody can pitch in. Miami, you saw it against the Lakers last year. I mean, unless Tyler Hero's going off for 30 every game, Jimmy can carry you, but he'll get tired. And I'm sure you don't want him doing that again. And I don't know if there's enough offensive firepower in Miami.
The injuries also didn't help. The injuries also didn't help to start the series.
Of course.
When Bam and Goran Dragic were hurt basically right off the bat, and that
they're still not going to drop
the entire complexion of the series.
I just don't know if he can score 130 points a game. That's
also
what I'm saying.
the Nets can give up 130 a game.
They're not going to
they can do the same
that's why they're making these small additions to try to improve defensively, because it's like this. They can pretty much get any shot they want on any possession because of how talented they are. All the Nets have to do is just like KD can play D. He can. James can if he wants to. Kyrie probably not. You bring in DeAndre Jordan, he's a bit of a defensive anchor in the paint depending on matchups.
Yep.
Depending on who the other guy is, Joe Harris still not the best defender in the world, but decent. I would feel like they would probably be able to get a stop in that situation with their offensive firepower and then against Miami, because literally they could say we could go to KD and there's nobody who can guard him. Maybe Bam, but okay, you got Bam on KD, but then if we bring in a Blake Griffin, we could go to Blake. But if we bring in a Jeff Green, we could stretch him out to the 3-point line.
With the NBA, how the NBA is constructed now, it's all 3-point shooters basically. How do JP said, no, Bryce, no, don't go down the John rabbit hole. How do DeAndre Jordan, because every player basically on the floor can now hit threes, that's how the NBA is. When DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin are out there, how do they cover the 3-point line? Because those guys are mainly low post. They're like down in the paint type of guys covering that defensively. But if you stretch DeAndre Jordan out to the 3-point line and Bam is shooting a 3 or somebody like that, because there's a lot of teams that have those centers that can shoot threes, how does DeAndre Jordan cover that? Or how does Blake Griffin cover that? Because those guys aren't athletic enough to cover that, clearly.
I think if this is the product of a really good coach to me, is based off matchups. I think if they play a team like Bam, you're probably going to see more Jeff Green because he can do that. He can cover and be that small 5 and everything. But if they play against 76ers, you're probably going to see more DeAndre and Blake because of Embiid. So I think it just depends on matchups. You guys are pretty much, you got your lineup. Bam's going to be out there. Jimmy, Tyler Hero, Dragic. You got your guys. The Nets have some flexibility. And I think that's why you always want depth to have that flexibility. Like the Lakers, when they need to play big, they could. When they need to play small, they could. Because if you got that flexibility, then you can prepare for any type of matchup that's coming your way.
I also think, John, I know the league is 3-point oriented, you're right, but you're still going to have a guy that's down low, no matter what. No matter what team it is, at least one guy will always be down low during the game. But I'm
saying defensively.
No, So
defensively, like if they keep trying to stretch DeAndre, if you leave DeAndre Jordan
so what I was
there,
going to say is Bryce mentioned matchups. So that guy that's down low, either Blake or DeAndre is going to be on that guy down low. You know that's how it's going to be because they don't. You're right. They don't defend the 3-point when they stretch it like that. You're right. I understand. So they'll at least cover that. And then I completely agree with Bryce. A good coach will be able to figure out the matchup in that. You're obviously going to have KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, even though they're not. Kyrie is really not the best defender or really one at all. He'll be out on the court, even if he forces the guy to go inside, right? Even if he can just do that and just force a non-3, that's where you're going to have DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin kind of come in on the defensive side. That's all they're going to have to do. And I understand it's not that easy. But that's what a good coach does, is gets teams to do things like that. I think that's inevitably where they do come in.
We don't know if their coach is good or not yet. We haven't seen playoff basketball from their coach, so we're not sure of that yet.
Well, I have a question, just one more question for you, John, about the Heat. So obviously you watched the finals. You saw how y'all had to basically play to compete with the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see. Do you? Okay, I'll ask you. Do you think they would have to do that again, where Jimmy Butler basically has to carry this team literally on his back if they win against a bit mega power, or do you think Tyler Hero's gonna make that step up? Bam's gonna make that step up. Dragic.
If the Heat were 100% healthy, they would have beat the Lakers in 6 last year. Maybe 5. Maybe. But they would have beat the Lakers last year if they were 100% healthy. The injuries never happened right off the bat. I think they would have beat the Lakers. I think they're a better team. The Lakers didn't have the depth. They had the superstars that were hard to stop. They didn't have as much depth as the Heat. And I think the Heat would have wore them down the length of the series. I think the Heat would have wore them down. Saw the Heat start to get the better of them as the games went on. And the Lakers won those last possession games. They won about 2 of them. They also had, the Heat were winning. Remember game 1, the Heat were winning before those injuries happened. So, I think the Heat were a better team. It's just the injuries changed the entire series. And then the Lakers smartly took advantage of it.
I don't think they would have beat them anyway, so it doesn't matter. The Heat, truthfully, they got stretched out. Like Jimmy Butler was forced to do everything. Guy can't do everything. And I understand, the injuries may have prevented that, but Jimmy Butler was still trying to carry the team, and you know that.
Well, when you lose your point guard to start and you lose your center,
what I'm saying is, even when everybody was in, Jimmy Butler was still trying to carry that team. He was doing all the work for the team, really, because he was the superstar. That's why the Lakers would have still won. They had 2 guys together, and I'm not counting Rondo because Rondo was not what he is, what he could be. So I'm just talking about LeBron and Anthony Davis, right? Together, they ran the floor. They did everything. They could do it all themselves. But the important thing was there was 2 of them as opposed to the 1. And even if the Heat were healthy, they didn't have the team to compete with them inevitably, because who was going to have to carry that team no matter what? Jimmy. And if Tyler Hero couldn't step up, who was going to step up? What?
Yeah, which he didn't.
Right. And if he's not, who else is really going to carry that team? I'm not saying who's going to help win, because I think a guy like Bam would help the team win, but who's going to carry the team? There wasn't that other guy. And that's the problem that the Heat have, is they're so reliant on one player. It becomes really strenuous and difficult for that one player, because even though he's a nice supporting cast, he doesn't have a real great sidekick, if you will. He doesn't have that number 2 option to help carry the team like LeBron and the Nets. They obviously have quite a few. And even Donovan Mitchell has that situation somewhat, because Gobert can control a team. He can be a leader on the team if he has to be. It's just Donovan Mitchell can be the leader, but he still has a strong sidekick, if you will. Jimmy Butler doesn't quite have that, because Tyler Hero could be that guy. Bam could be that guy. Bam's just not in the right position to be doing it. And more importantly, Tyler Hero, he's streaky. And
I know he's
right.
What? 21?
But for now, he's been streaky.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to pick on him. I'm just speaking honestly and you can experience that firsthand. Tyler Hero is a great young player. He just needs more experience and needs to learn to be more consistent.
He's very young, yeah.
Right. And if he became
we're going to get from Kendrick Nunn. So
yeah, Kendrick Nunn is he's
there's a
Turns
reason
it over a lot. Yeah.
There's a reason I'm skipping past certain players like that.
Yeah.
It's not a diss to anybody. It's just I'm speaking about the guys that really do help carry the team.
Mm-hmm.
If Tyler Hero was more consistent, was more of a veteran and knew what he was doing, and he could help carry the team along with Jimmy Butler, I think the Heat would be a little bit more formidable because they'd actually have a nice 1-2 punch. It's just right now they have a one punch with Jimmy Butler and they have almost like a half, like a weak punch with no. I'm not making fun. What I mean by that, I'll explain. The Lakers have a great 1-2 punch. It's a strong.
I know what the Lakers and Nets have. I've heard all of it.
That's all I mean, and it's not.
I've heard all of it.
It's not a diss on anybody. It's just they're not, built that right way yet. Eventually they could be, but for now they're not there. That's why I'm saying they're not
wait
there
until
yet.
the playoffs, and then we'll see just what happened last year happen again, and then I'll say I told you so again. I'll say Hall of Fame coach again does it again, does it for the 6th time maybe.
JB will at least be on the show to help me shut you down.
Oh, he's commenting. Believe me.
Oh, I know.
All them comments are him.
Oh, I know, but it's only does.
I can see he's chomping at the bit to jump in on this conversation to shut me down, but he's not here, so he can't get me, JB. Not this time.
Bryce, was there anything else in the NBA that you wanted to talk about? We got a little more time we can talk. So,
really, outside of that, I know we're still doing buyouts and trade deadlines coming up and things like that. So I was just wanting to ask you guys, is there any particular player that you see potentially moving right now? Obviously, Andre Drummond's a big name right now because he looks like we think he's going to get bought out. And right now, the two main teams are the Nets and the Lakers. And so do we see him going to one of those two teams? Is this a surprise? Is there another player that maybe we need to look out for? And also, actually, Houston, they're about to have a sale on players. PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, Victor Oladipo, all could be up for sale. Could be great key contributors to championship teams. What do we think is gonna come from all the moves that potentially could be made?
You hit the team I was thinking. I don't mean to cut you off, John. But Victor Oladipo was the team I was the guy. The Rockets. Victor Oladipo. That's exactly in my head, right there. When you said, I said, "Oh, he's gone. He wants out. We know that." He turned down that extension, that contract. You knew right then and there he wants out. It's just a question of where he goes, which I leave to you, Bryce, because I guarantee you watch a lot more basketball than I do, and you know a better fit than I would. But I know enough to say that he is, for me, the most obvious guy that's going to almost guaranteed be traded, before the deadline, because it's so clear. I mean, all he's got to do now is, the saying is the writing's on the wall. All he has left to do is literally write it on the wall and say, "Get me out, please," because he's with the way he's acting, what he decided to do, it all but screams, "I want out of Houston." I think that's pretty clear. So for me, if there's a guy to watch, it's Victor Oladipo. I mean, it's not only that he wants out of Houston, but he's a superstar. I mean, one of the best in the league, wants out of his current situation, and teams are going to be clamoring to get him.
Yeah. The quick part of Oladipo, there's been some rumors going around that apparently Golden State might try to get Oladipo.
Yeah, I think I heard.
They're looking to add another ball handler besides Steph Curry. So I think that would be a pretty good combo, Steph, Oladipo. I think it's better than what they have currently.
I've heard Miami too for Oladipo. I've heard his name linked to Miami a lot.
Yeah, they've linked him there a lot too.
Yeah.
That would be a really good addition. Obviously, it depends what you have to give up. If the Rockets are really having this sale, then you probably don't have to give up. I mean, they're probably looking like, just give us some picks.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get a decent haul back, but if they're if they're doing a fire sale, they know they're going to get a good return on all of their players, and they'll be set up for the future.
Yeah, and so I think it's a potential that would be moved. I don't know if they're going to move John. I know John's been in and out of the lineup this year.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they're going to move John. John could maybe be someone, or they might keep him for the rest of the year. PJ Tucker, I definitely think somebody's going to get him. He's been connected to multiple teams, the Timberwolves, a lot of, and then playoff teams who may just need that 3-and-D guy, good defender, can shoot the three. Obviously, last year he had the best percentage from the corner from the three. So he's a guy who I think would be really big for a team. Maybe again, Miami, because remember, y'all lost Jay Crowder. I think that was more of an important loss than maybe.
They picked up Avery Bradley to kind of replace him. Great, better defender, but not as good of a shooter.
Yeah, so maybe you go there. Eric Gordon, I think, is an underrated guy. He can still score. You know, a lot of people forget with Westbrook and Harden and Chris and Harden, he was the other guy getting 18, 20 points, you know, that third scorer on the team. He could be a really good pickup. The only person I think they're not going to move is obviously Christian Wood because he looks like a star big man to come. So I think they're going to build around him, but that's definitely a move that can be made. And then Andre Drummond, I think he's that traditional big man, prehistoric in the paint. He can get you a double-double every game. That's not a problem. He's a walking double-double. It's just if he goes to the Nets, I think that puts him over the top because now.
But is there too many?
They can basically say, "Okay, basketball firmly."
Is there too many down low post mat? Like prehistoric guys? Because that's three. You got Jordan. You got Blake Griffin, and then
Blake's not really a post up guy anymore. He's more of a jump shooter.
But he's
a mid range guy.
I know what John means.
Like not really an athletic guy. You don't got to worry about. That's going to chase you down on the 3-point line, or you can stretch him out easily. Like. He's not really an athletic guy, so they would have a lot of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I was thinking about was that they could be looking at it like this. They could say, we have one of the best offenses in the league. We could score on anybody. And, think about it. As a team, I'm sure teams think about who do we think we're going to meet in those Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, NBA Finals. You know what I'm saying? And they may say, okay, if we meet Philadelphia, it'd be pretty important for us to have all these bodies, Because they may think that's the team we're going to meet there at the end of the day. Or even Giannis. Giannis can only come into the paint. So those guys would be really good. You know what I'm saying? Because really there's nobody, I guess, if I'm not thinking off the top of my head, that you maybe think has that stretch big that's like, oh, he's dangerous. So that would be the reason. If he goes to the Lakers, the only reason why I think that would be good for them is, remember, they had JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard last year. Those were great against, obviously, Denver and Joker. They obviously know they have to go through some pretty good bigs, Rudy Gobert, Joker, whoever in the Western Conference. And Marc Gasol really hasn't been the best. I think Marc Gasol is done. He's a good passer. He's a good leader. I just don't think you can't put him out there playing big minutes.
Memphis, right.
Yeah.
He's not the guy he once was.
And honestly, I mean, Drummond, he could still score. He could get you about 14, 15 for putbacks, dunks, whatever. Just those small baskets kind of add up. It kind of reminds me of, not in the same sense of athleticism, but remember back when LeBron was in Miami with Chris Anderson? A lot of putbacks, a lot of dunks.
Yep, I remember.
Yeah,
Birdman.
I think that's what they would probably use him for because he has valued both of those teams in that way. So there's definitely plenty of moves that can be made from that perspective. And I don't know if there's any other team that might want to come in there and do it, but it just depends. Go ahead, John.
Two teams you didn't mention about what they might do. You didn't mention the Suns. Suns have a pretty solid team. Curious if they add any of these guys. And then I want to hear what you have to say about what the Hawks are going to do because you cover the Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious what you think the Suns might do at the trade deadline, and then what the Hawks are going to do, whether they sell or they buy or stay put.
For the Suns, I think that could be where they could maybe go and dip into the Houston fire sale. Getting a guy like a PJ or Eric Gordon, I think, would be really good for their team because you got Chris Paul, great leader. Everywhere he goes, he wins. He's just able to make a franchise better. Devin Booker, young star, one of the best offensive players in the game, one of the best young players in the game. DeAndre up and coming big. You could maybe say they could upgrade a little bit more on the wing in terms of like that three position. Mm-hmm. So maybe you go get a PJ Tucker, get that defender, get that 3-point shooter. And I think it's like, okay, we have our stars. We just want to fill out the rest of the roster. And I think that would be a pretty good move to pick up right there if that's a guy that they want to go after. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And then with the Hawks, I think obviously, I cover the Hawks very closely. I think the Hawks are in a position where, they have a new head coach, Nate McMillan. They're 4-1 under him this year so far. Trae Young in the last 2 games before the break, I believe, scored, almost half of the Hawks' points in those 4 quarters combined because he's a guy that I think a lot of people don't forget this. He was 3rd in clutch scoring his rookie year behind LeBron, and I forgot who else. I think James Harden. He was 3rd. So he could close out games and everything. But I think in terms of the Hawks, I just think they need to get healthy. DeAndre Hunter is supposed to be back April 1st, around that end. Cam Reddish obviously had a non-surgical procedure on his Achilles. We'll see when he gets back, hopefully in a week. I don't really see the Hawks making moves just because they haven't really had their full team together. But if they did make a move, I know there's been rumors about them trading John Collins. I like him. I don't really want them to move off of him. I don't think anybody on the team can do what he does. And he fits so great with Clint Capella and Trey in both parts of the game. So I think the Hawks are going to probably stay put. I think there is this sense within Atlanta that with the team, playing how they ended the All-Star break, going into the All-Star break, Nate McMillan seems to get the guys, playing a little bit better. Obviously, a lot of issues with Lloyd Pierce, everything like that. I think the Hawks are a team that, again, I'm not saying they're going to be making some deep playoff run or anything like that, but they're a team that I think are going to play better in the second half of the year. They're only a game and a half out of that 10th spot, which is for the play-in game. And I think that you'll probably, especially when this team gets all together, I think they're going to be a solid team. And I think Trey is going to play really well down the stretch. I know, obviously, in the NBA carousel, the group chat, a lot of people are critical of Trey. And I'm just like, guys, I get that he's small and he doesn't play defense, but he also can give you 30 and 10. Not everybody can give you 30 and 10. That you can't act like he doesn't do that for you. So I think that if he plays like that and then we get healthy, we have a pretty good supporting cast to me. A lot of people may not know that because a lot of people don't pay attention to Atlanta in the grand scheme of things. But we have a good supporting cast, and I think they could be a very competitive team.
Could Atlanta move since they're probably not gonna make a deep playoff run? Could they move Rondo and get something out of him, or is there not much of a market for? I mean, that guy could help a team that's trying to make a run that needs another point guard.
Well, here's the thing about that. Rondo hasn't been good in the regular season in how long? But he's usually better in playoffs. With the Pelicans, he was good in the playoffs. With the Lakers, he was good in the playoffs when he was healthy, when he came back.
Yeah.
So I think we signed Chris Dunn, and he hasn't played at all this year. He's had injuries before the season. I think he would probably be our second guard if he wasn't hurt. And then Rondo would be more of a mentor, come run the show when he needs to. So I feel like we probably won't feel – if we make the playoffs, I think we may feel his impact a little bit better. Because I look at Atlanta, we added a lot of shooters. Rondo is a guy who can still facilitate, and he's actually became a decent three-point shooter. He's just not a guy you can say, hey, Rondo, we need 15 and you're not getting that out of him.
He's never been that guy. He wasn't even that guy on the Celtics.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just him running the offense when Trey's not on the floor and keeping the offense flowing is what we need more. I don't see much of a market for him, but I think that veteran leadership is going to be crucial down the stretch because if we are in playoff positioning or we're firmly in the playoffs, Rondo's been there. He's had that experience. He's done it. No, we have a lot of young players. A lot of our key players are young. I think that's where you'll maybe feel the impact of a Rajon Rondo. And then maybe in the playoffs, if he ends up being playoff Rondo again, he can really help elevate the younger guys on our team because that's who I think he's impacting the most in this situation.
That's the reason he was brought in. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's definitely some value there. And, listen, I think of one like Trey's playmaking ability is a little bit underrated. He is almost averaging 10 assists again this year. I think he's averaging 9. So, it's almost like it's about the impact. You can average 9 assists, but are they impactful 9 assists?
Right. Exactly.
And Rondo has learned how to be impactful in certain situations. Like when he came back for the Lakers, he was impactful in the playoffs with what he did for them, helping LeBron be off ball. And so I think that's going to be big for Trey's development. Is his first thing is being more of an efficient scorer because the best scorers in the game are efficient. They can get you 30 or maybe 14 shots. And then being impactful when you're making plays for other guys on the team. Not just, just the assist there and assist there, but an impactful play setting someone else up, maybe setting someone else to make another play, all of that.
All right. Anything else in the NBA or are we good?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything from the NBA.
John, I know there was something on your mind that we mentioned it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the NHL.
I know exactly what you want to talk about. I'll let you present it. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm excited. That it's not official, but it's basically it's reported that the ESPN is trying to buy or at least buy part of the U.S. part of the media rights to the NHL games, so that way NBC has the rights right now, but ESPN's trying to get part of the rights. Hey, Megan, thanks for joining us. You just missed our NBA talk. But ESPN is trying to. This looks like they might sign a 7-year deal with the NHL, so that way some of their games stream on Disney. If you have the Disney streaming service, you'd get to watch NHL games. I'm not sure which games, and then also it's reported that between 2022 and 2028, for 4 of those years in there, somewhere in there, the Stanley Cup final games will be on ESPN. You'll get to watch them on ESPN. So that's pretty cool. I remember growing up, I used to watch NHL on ESPN. The music that Jacob had talked to us about in our chat earlier today, I loved that music growing up. I used to watch hockey all the time. Barry Melrose and all those guys were just, that was as good then as football is now to me. That's how much I loved watching that hockey. The presentation was amazing. The playoff games were amazing. They did it right. Much better than NBC. NBC's okay, but the way ESPN did it back then was just gold. I don't know why they ever got rid of it, but I'm happy this is coming back. I hope they do the production right again, because I would be all for getting Disney if ESPN does this right. And depending on, I guess, what games they put on, I'm not sure how the logistics are going to work.
That goes into my only problem with this, and we'll wrap with this because we are running out of time as we get to this. But not everybody has Disney Plus or ESPN Plus or all of that. So the only issue I have with this is, while I don't love the NBC announcers, and we talked about that before the show, I'm not a real big fan of them. They have a big bias. I've never been a fan of that, but that's not the point. That TV is free. I put quotes around that because if you pay for a cable package, a basic cable package comes with channels like NBC. That's a basic news channel that I'm pretty sure every single standard package has nowadays. So my only real issue is, if you don't pay for cable, like I don't pay for cable anymore, I only have streaming services, so that doesn't hurt me. But there are people that might do the opposite. They don't have every streaming service. They may not have Disney Plus. They may not have ESPN, or because that's usually bundled together. They may not have that stuff. If you're a hockey fan, you might miss out on games. Only issue with this, and I'm just nitpicking, as you can tell. But with a deal like this, it's great, and I think there's a lot that could go right with it. And ESPN needs the help right now, but at the same time, it could hurt fans that don't have that, because then they have to go spend more money on a service if they want to watch the games. So I'm not trying to knock this, but I am trying to bring to light that it is exciting, it's great, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows entirely when you dig a little bit deeper below the surface.
And my question is as well, depending on where you live, are there going to be blackout restrictions for depending on what game is on? Because that is a thing. I mean, that happens over here watching the Orioles. If you try and use the MLB, I don't know what their service is called, but I have their service.
TV, I think is what you're talking about.
TV or whatever. I have that, but I can't watch Orioles games because I live too close to the Orioles, so I can't watch their games. Even though I have that, I'm subscribed to that. That's paid for. That entire thing is paid for. All the big money that comes out, it's like paying for DirecTV for that. And I can't watch the Orioles because I live too close to it. Is that going to be a thing for if the Hurricanes are on and you live in North Carolina, you can't watch them? So I'm curious how those logistics are going to work, because that would really deter people if your favorite team you can't watch because you live too close.
No, and that's the problem. It could hurt the NHL, but it could really help them. I don't know. I wish I knew those details. I don't know. Maybe Gary is listening. He's got a tendency to apparently listen to the show.
Yeah.
Maybe he can send us a message, send us an email, send us something, and let us know. But I'm not sure. But that's another great point, and I worry about that. I hope that's not the case. But, I mean, for me personally as a Rangers fan, I don't think I've run into that problem because most of their games, they have their own channel for it. Madison Square Garden has their own channel, so they have the rights to all the games always. But not every team has that. That's just because of the market that I'm in. That's just the way it is. The Knicks are on there. The Nets are on there. A lot of teams go on there because of the area, but most teams are not fortunate to have something like that for their team. I don't know. And John, I think you might be right. That could be another deterrent besides the extra money. They may just, okay, fine, I'll go pay this extra money. Well, guess what? You're too close. You can't watch your team anyway. Too bad. It happens. I hope not, but I think we don't know enough yet. It's all just reported. Things will come out. We'll know more, and there will be further conversations about this in the NHL. And if we had more time, I would definitely talk more about the NHL, but we are just about out of time. I don't want to go too long tonight. So I think we'll stop there for that. Anything huge news in baseball, John? I don't think so. We're just
no, pretty quiet right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's it, if there's nothing else, I think that's it for tonight. Just a quick recap as always. You can find me on Twitter at Jake_Malik, and for Sideline Sports, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Sideline Sport 1, and YouTube and Facebook. It's just Sideline Sports. John, where can they find you?
You can find me BlueHawks13 on Twitter. NBA Carousel Monday nights. NFL Carousel during the NFL season. Alex Fleming hosts that. Him and Eric Wilson host that. So you can find me on there. And then Bryce, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Brycey_2K if you want to catch me there. And yeah, that's pretty much on my social media platforms. So if you look that up, you can find me anywhere. Plus also NBA Carousel also on Mondays with John. And yeah.
What about your Atlanta Hawks show?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, awesome. If you have a mobile phone, download Fan Media, look up Bryce Lewis. You can catch me covering all things Atlanta Hawks and Atlanta Falcons. I try to have guests on show each week. Every week I try to release a show for both the Hawks and Falcons. Just recently put up a show for the Atlanta Falcons with Jelani Brown, someone who we work with within Sideline Sports, and probably are going to get my Hawks show up by the end of the week. Trying to see who's going to be my guests. It's like multiple people right now. So if you want to catch up with Atlanta Hawks or Atlanta Falcons, download the Fan Media app, look me up, follow me, and enjoy.
All right. Well, that's it for this week's edition of Sideline Sports. I know we had a lot to talk about, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more to talk about next week. We talked about a lot of NFL free agents. I'll put my money where my mouth is. There will be plenty of players signed by next week. I'd be shocked if they're not.
So the new season starts I think it's the 17th, and our show will be on the 16th. So we'll be right before, there. A couple hours before
the tampering day is on the 15th.
Exactly.
So before all those deals can be official, it'll be live right before all those deals can be official. That's pretty cool.
So we'll have plenty of news next week and probably some breaking news next week. So if you're not following Sideline Sports, make sure you are subscribed. Check us out everywhere. And that is it for this week. So we will see you next week.
Bye.